Blog Talk Radio.
Last night I saw a lunar eclipse in the sky. Then something happened in my mind's eye. I saw you in a whole different light. Clearly, really, it's not that I want you to change. It's more that I want you to stay the same.
Oh, and I really do want you to stay the same. I want you to stay right here with me for the next hour. I'm Bonnie D. Graham, a.k.a. Radio Red, and we sure are red. What a beautiful sunshiny day in Manhattan yesterday. Took a visit into the city with some friends and went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I found out how pretty my hair color was when one of the docents or guides at the Met looked at me when I asked directions, and she said, "Boy, you have really pretty hair." And I said, "Thank you," basking in the glow of her smile and my red hair. So there. For the next hour, I'd like you to join me for my little corner of the world. On Monday nights, we call ourselves Read My Lips Radio. And you know you can't see what my engineer at WGBB used to call Bonnie's ocean blue eyes and bee-stung red lips. But here I am, and I'm going to be bringing you two very interesting authors. And you know, if you're a regular listener, that I met them at the National Publicity Summit in New York. Well, all the way back in October 2014. Seems like ages ago, and actually I'm getting ready to go back to the city for another publicity summit in just a couple of weeks and meet another 60 or 70 new authors and bring you more and more interesting people. So let me tell you a little bit about my two authors, and they're waiting in the wings. One's on hold, the other one is live, and he's going to wait until I do my little intro, which includes famous birthdays of the day and some shout-outs and all good stuff like that. But first I want to tell you, first up, if you're in business and you think you know what sales is, you think you know what marketing is, are they the same? How do you do them? Are you spending your money in the right places? Do you understand the ins and outs of direct marketing, indirect marketing? Ever heard of the yellow pages? You know what social media is. Are you buying marketing services from someone? Well, I've got an expert in the field who's been around a long time. His name is Kevin Neff, N-E-F-F. Very serious guy. I love the way he wears his glasses. And his book is Got One or Get One, The Business Lie That Is Keeping You Broke. So Kevin and I are going to explore his take on business after so many years in the field. He's a well-sought-out speaker and lecturer on all topics related to sales and marketing for businesses of all sizes, and we'll find out what Kevin has to say. Very interesting. And I'm going to take a little leap of faith here. Even if you're not in business, you don't own a company, you're not in sales or marketing, but you're trying to sell yourself perhaps on LinkedIn or other social media to get a job, and one of my regular listeners is doing that right now. Kevin probably has some tips on marketing yourself as well. Second half of the show, well, I know it's not January 1st, but a lot of us still are trying to figure out how to get healthy this year. So forget about the resolutions and the revolutions and the evolutions. We're going to meet a lady named Carol Phillips. She is very pretty and blonde and healthy. I bet she has blue eyes, too. Can't tell in this picture. She's a health and wellness expert. She's been around 25 years in this field. She's energetic. She's an author, a speaker, and her book is 52 Simple Ways to Health. Do the math. That's a year. Probably you could figure it out. One a week for 52 weeks, but we're going to take you through a speed review of her 52 simple ways to health. I'll give you a clue. Ever wonder how you can eat less in a restaurant when the portion is really big and you're sitting there saying, well, somebody's paying for it. Well, it sure looks good. Well, I don't want to bring home a doggy bag. Well, blah, blah, blah. Well, Carol Phillips says, ask for the takeout container before you start your dinner. Put half of it away. Put it somewhere, give it to the waiter, have them keep it warm, whatever, and only eat half. You'll learn how quickly you can be satisfied. You'll have the takeout ready, and you won't be tempted to eat too much. I love that tip. So we'll talk about changing your habits. Now let me go to it's March 23rd. We have some famous birthdays today. Kerry Russell was born today in 1976. Wasn't she a young one? Amanda Plummer, the actress, born in 57. Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan. You know her real name is Yvette Marie Stevens? I didn't know that. Born in 1953. 20 years before Chaka Khan, Monique Van Voren, Vavavoom, I think I can say, was born in 1933. Let's see. Let me see who else I recognize here. Not an awful lot. Oh, well, Joan Crawford was born today, either in 1908 or 1906, and that's because ladies didn't tell their age in those days. And her real name was Lucille Le Sueur, like the Le Sueur sweet peas. that was who she was. And Eric Fromm, the psychoanalyst born in 1900. Don't send them birthday cards. It's too late. Shout-outs to my beautiful Lorna, my mom, who I know is listening, to my Dune and Stephen, are watching their house be built every day, one brick and one concrete slab at a time, to my big kahuna, my tag, my dancer, and my photographer in Florida, and Dr. Pepper, of course, hugs and kisses, and to lovely, lanky Laura, my most loyal fan. Listen up, Kevin Neff might have some really good tips for you, Laura. Movies, let's see. Good Wife was great. I wonder what's going to happen to Kalinda. We know they're going to kill her off. And Alicia won for a state's attorney, despite her husband's attempt to squash her turnout at the election. I'm still waiting for Mr. Selfridge, which I think starts next week on, that's classic on PBS. And yes, it's replacing Downton Abbey. That's what I wanted to say. Rookie Blue should be starting soon. Mistresses is the summer guilty treat, and Major Crimes will be starting again soon. I watched the Royal Tenenbaums on Starz on demand. Very interesting if you have the patience to wait through all these character studies, but quite an interesting turn for Angelica Houston and Bill Murray and, so many other stars, Gene Hackman and Gwyneth Paltrow, who never smiles and smokes a lot. Fascinating movie. If you haven't seen it, catch it on demand. I don't know if I'd pay for it in the movies, but I digress. Time to get started. Kevin Neff is waiting in the wings. Kevin is the author of Got One or Get One? The business lie that's keeping you broke. I don't want to be broke, Kevin Neff. How are you today, Kevin?
Bonnie, I am doing wonderful. With the exception of these Virginia allergies, I'm having a great day.
Oh, so you are where in Virginia? What kind of allergies? Come on, share.
I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia, right on the coast, and they say that this is the worst place in the country, this area, to live for allergies, because the joke here is if you don't have them, it's only a matter of time before you will, and I think I'm walking proof of that. But I'm excited to be on here with you, and, talking about branding, I just want to give you a comment right up front. Besides your plethora of information you shared with everybody,
well, what a big word.
Well, I try to use one every show. But what I really remembered about you, and I'm being sincere, this is a compliment I want to give you, since we're talking about branding, I remember you like I met you yesterday, and gosh, I can't believe it was all the way back in October, which is 1, 2, 3, it's a lot of months. But I remembered you on the panel, and for those of the people listening at home or on their way home, when we were introduced to you all came in and you sat in a multi-leveled panel, kind of a tier situation. And I remembered you distinctly, and I mean this as a compliment, but you talked it, walked it, lived it, breathed it. I mean, you just came across like, this is somebody that's a celebrity radio host, and I want to be on her show. It was how you dressed. It was how you talked. It was how you carried yourself, and you were, hopefully this is okay, but you were no BS when I spoke to you. And you took your role very seriously, and quite frankly, we met a lot of people. I think I forced the issue a little bit with you, but I wanted to be on your show because I felt just from what your brand showed me that you were a true pro. So I guess we'll find out if that was a good representation of you.
I won't. But
I think it is. I think it is, though.
Kevin, that's so kind of you. That is, and so on topic for you. I appreciate it very much. When I go to the summit,
absolutely.
I know, listen, I'm the little kid on the top row on Radio Row, and I'm just here on Blog Talk Radio, but to me the show is so important to introduce people like you and our second guest, Carol Phillips, to the big world out there, and to give you more experience and opportunity to talk about yourselves, your books, your passions, the topics that are important to you and your books and your audiences. But most important, I am the No BS host, and I do read my guest books. I did read everything before the show, and I want to be a brand, and I'm so pleased to know that it's coming across. So thank you,
absolutely.
Kevin. That was
absolutely
very lovely. I can't remember the last time anybody told me that, so I am very appreciative. Well, I like you already, but I did before.
Well, I think it's important, since we are going to talk about, and we can dive right into the book if you'd like to ask me questions, but, the thing is that, and I'll start right off by saying this, in today's technology-driven world, Bonnie, it's really important that the listeners understand this, and really whether it's a business you're starting up, you're an entrepreneur or a small business owner thinking about one, or even in your own personal life, whether it's trying to get a job position that you are seeking, we get information from every which way. It's coming at us from all directions, and a lot of it's, quite frankly, it's noise. And what I tell people is that more now than ever, you must understand, and I try to paint pictures with my words, which is a way that I brand myself. But if you can envision this, and the listeners right now, you've got to become the grain of salt in the pepper shaker. Because if I don't know of you, I can't do business with you. It's an impossibility. And you really have to separate and differentiate yourself. And you did that. I remembered even you were on the top row, I think. And you know, when they got to you, it was like, whoa, this lady is, I knew nothing more about you than what I read in the little book they gave us and what you said, and I was like, holy moly, this lady's a pro. And for all I knew, you had the biggest show up there. But that's a great example of, I think total, and you can ask Carol when she comes on, I know she's listening, I think we had a total pool of 100 to 150 media people there. And think about this. Just think about this. You were only there for, half a day maybe. You separated yourself by the manner and the way you carried yourself. You didn't have a logo. You didn't necessarily have a card. And people have to understand, Bonnie, that branding is more than a label on a can of baked beans or something. I just read today, and this was a great analogy by Jeff Bezos of Amazon, that a brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Now, isn't that a clever way of describing a brand?
Yeah, it's very true. Because Kevin, it's what people remember, what they took away, and it's also whether it was a positive or negative brand, positive or negative experience. Is it a brand they want to remember when they need to think about what they believe you offer? And I know you talk about that in your book. It's called Top of Mind, and that's one of the things a lot of people didn't get about advertising early on, whether it was in magazines or newspapers or the Yellow Pages. People would say, oh, I'll put one ad in and I'm the one they'll go to when they need a plumber or when they need a hairdresser or when they need new furniture or when they need slip covers. I'm the one. So having a brand that people first pay attention to, second of all, have a positive affinity toward, and third of all, remember when they have a need for what you've got. Is that the magic bullet, you would say, Kevin?
Yeah, I really would. And you hit on something that you said when you started that, was about that they do one and done and they think, oh, I'll be relevant because they'll see my ad one time. And that is something that people need to understand. It used to be when I started, a little background, I started my career in corporate advertising back with the phone company in the 90s when the Yellow Pages was very much relevant. Now, I know today it's used for everything from a booster seat for your child at the dinner table to a computer monitor stand to a door block. But, it wasn't that long ago, Bonnie, that it was the predominant source of directional advertising. What I mean by that is, now think about this, that not that long ago, if you needed or you were in the process of making a buying decision, you went to the phone book. I mean, there was no internet, let alone Google. And that was the one place I used to joke about that was a two-book call. When they called you out of the phone book, they had the phone book in one hand, checkbook in the other. The other type of advertising you mentioned, like if people did TV, radio, magazines, that's creative. And what it means is that when you do those types of advertising, you're doing them to create an awareness of your products and services so that when people are in the time frame of making a buying decision, you want to be relevant. Because if you're relevant, you're at least in the process. Now, how do you become relevant? Well, like you said, by being memorable. Now, the key there is, and you brought this together rather well, I must say, the key is being memorable for the right reasons. Because the listeners have to understand, you can be memorable for all the wrong reasons, and you're not going to be relevant in the buying decision. You're a non-issue. So, people just think it's easy enough to run an ad. Well, when you do creative advertising, you have to do frequency. Because think about it, TV, radio, newspaper, direct mail, those things. Okay, let's say we were talking about your mom before we came on the air. Your mom's plumbing, the pipes burst. Now, I hope that doesn't happen, and I hope I didn't jinx her, but let's just say it does. Okay. And you happen to be over there when it does. Do you think your mom is going to turn to you and say, let's turn on the TV or let's go in the mailbox and pick up some direct mail to find a plumber right now that's got 25 merchants. Of course.
No, of course not.
I mean, that's idiotic. No. That's right. But what could happen, because your mom's pretty sharp from what I understand,
totally.
She might say, what's that commercial we're always seeing, Kevin's Plumbing, be there quick or something, and let's go online or let's see if we can find information. That's the way creative advertisements work. Through frequency of your message, you hope to be top of mind when they have a need for your product or service, and that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. Very well put. Thank you. And I want to bring up something else, Kevin. This wasn't in your book, but I know you get this. I get this as part of my day job, my day life, is that consumers today are looking for multi-channel access. So multi-channel means I might want to buy something from Amazon online. I might want to go down the store to down the block to a brick and mortar store and buy something there. I might want to do a phone order with some company I know very well where I'm comfortable calling them and doing something, or maybe I'm calling my internet provider and I'm ordering some expanded services from them. Those are just some of the ways we connect. So to the point of advertising, it's not just enough to be in one venue, one medium. You have to be everywhere where your current or future potential customers and prospects are. You agree with that, Kevin?
Yeah, to a point. The problem right now is that there's such a wide variety of places that you can be with a business and giving yourself representation. You named several of them. And it's a common mistake I make where people try to be everywhere and all things to everybody. But the problem is this. The amount of opportunities of where we can advertise have increased, but the marketing budgets for many of us really haven't. So what I tell people is, number one, and I do a lot of educating when I deal with clients because I want the expectations to be correct. Number one, I say, let's look at the demographics of who you're trying to reach. Number two, let's see the pool, we'll just call it pool, the swimming pool that those people are playing in. And number three, by order of priority, let's jump in the pool with them. So I'll give you an analogy.
Yes.
Now, I have a pretty big social media presence like you do, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or whatever.
Yes.
But for my type of business, my best use of social media is probably LinkedIn because I'm in front of business professionals. I've actually had opportunities from the other side of the globe. People enjoyed my writing. So I could be all over the place, but my primary focus is LinkedIn, then Facebook, and a little bit on Twitter. Now, if you are a small business owner, let's say that you do, well, you know what? Let's have some fun. Why don't you throw a typical small business that people might deal with on a daily basis or might have a need?
Right.
What would one be?
Something, Kevin, from a couple of years ago that emerged in big cities like New York and I believe San Francisco were the cupcake carts, the trucks that went around with fresh cupcakes or muffins that were baking.
They're big down here, too.
Are they good? And the way they were mastering social media and advertising was to gather people's names, who's interested in this in our city. Yeah, we've got this, we've got that. And then they would say, check your Twitter feed. We're going to be at the corner of 53rd and Park at 10 a.m. with 3 dozen fresh, hot out of the oven blueberry muffins, for example, or blueberry donuts. And people would line up at the corners expecting the cupcake truck. It was cupcakes to arrive. That was a masterful way, and that's free advertising. That's free media. So that was hot in so many ways. That's the best use case I can come up with for a very, very small business. What do you think?
And well, think about this. You also touched on something without maybe knowing it. Not only was that really smart, but they generated their own supply and demand issue. And the reason they were able to do that was it goes back to your brand and what you're memorable for. Actually, I have friends here that do that, and actually Twisted Sister cupcakes, I think, are really big. And they do the same thing, but it all started with they created a brand and they delivered on that brand. And a lot of people would be like, well, where are you going to be tomorrow or next week? Because, they're mobile. They're going to go where they think they can touch the most people at any given time. So you're exactly right. What they did was they created a cult-type following of their brand, maybe like a Starbucks or cupcakes, And rather than advertising out to try to get new customers, they depended on sharing their message with people that already were enjoying their brand or were memorable because of their brand, and letting them know where they would be. And it's kind of reverse engineering marketing if you really think about it, but you're right, it's free. But I want your listeners to remember this too. There's a big mistake about social media that's free, like, oh, your sister's daughter's niece can do it, and she's already prolific on it,
right.
And so she can do it. Here's the problem. Number one, that doesn't mean she can do it well. Number two, even though it's quote unquote free, at least where I grew up, time is money. So
exactly.
I always tell business owners, many of them, I'll be honest, Bonnie, I'll tell you a little secret. We many times will educate them and let them go and try it themselves. And when they realize how involved or in-depth it can be or time-consuming, they come back to us because, one, they now understand how involved it can be. But number two, they're like, you know what? My money and time is best invested in running my parts counter of my repair shop or whatever and letting a professional who at the end of the day it will cost me less to let them do it. So I want to caution when we use the word free, but in that analogy you're absolutely right. And that's actually
and Kevin,
good one.
You're absolutely right, because I have, in my day job, I have hired a social media agency to get me started with boosting up the reach of my Twitter account, which I use now 3 or 4 times a week. But I didn't just come by 6 or 8 or 10,000 contacts to follow just because I snapped my fingers and it happened. And I've coached some business clients on the side who wanted me to take them through how do they make LinkedIn work for their business, how do they make Facebook work. And, there is more than meets the eye. It does take dedication. It takes insight into where your audience pool is, how to reach them, what messages. But, Kevin, 2 things I want to cover in the 9 minutes we have left. Number one, you make a great point at the beginning of your book, and we have to talk about what that lie is, but you make a great point saying, okay, so you hire a social media expert, and they go out and they get you a LinkedIn and a Facebook and a Twitter account. They got your products on Pinterest. Everybody's thrilled, wow. And then the calls start coming and the emails start coming, and people haven't ordered yet. They just know who you are. They know how to find you, and they're curious. And you say, oh, I wasted all that money. I didn't get any business out of it. Well, duh, you're saying. Once that prospect walks up, knocks on the door, rings the bell, chimes the Twitter bing, bing, whatever, and or the text message, you've got to do something with them. And you've given examples in your book about dental practices you work for with amazing 80 new prospect clients a month, and they weren't converting them because they just didn't even read the report. So the responsibility is on the other side. In other words, hire a marketing person or salespeople, and don't blame them if the business doesn't convert because you didn't do something with those leads. You want to just take a minute to talk about that, Kevin?
Yeah, I will, and thanks for that segue. That section of the book, which is, as you know, and thanks for the shout-out, literally is what I start with the book, and I've really stirred the pot up. But I'm getting a lot of people to realize that what I say is true. And I just had a heated discussion with a media rep just last week about the stuff I talk about within the industry, and we'll save that for another time. But to your point, the lie is this, that advertising and marketing is meant to get you business. Now, a lot of people are like, well, then what in the heck is it for? This is what it's for. Advertising and marketing is not to get you business, Bonnie. It is meant to get you, Bonnie, the opportunity to do business. When the phone rings, my job's done. When the potential customer or client walks through the threshold of your front door, my job is done. Now, if my job was to answer your phones, pitch your products, and close the deals, I can tell you you'd have your best year ever because I was that good when I was in that profession. But that's not what I do, and what I tell people is this. And it's without exception, you must do it. With technology, there's literally nothing that I can't track, and I teach this. Now, there are some things that are a little gray, but what I tell people is this. You must do the who, what, how. And simply put, it's this. Number one, you've got to make a list of who you're advertising with. Number two, what you're actually paying for with these people, like what products did you buy? Was it radio spots, ads, how many? Was it a 15-second spot, followed up, whatever? And then how are they performing? And if you don't do this and have some type of idea, you're doomed to fail, and this is why. Advertising is a jigsaw puzzle. It's made up of all the separate pieces that you do. Like you might be on more than one social media outlet. You might have a newsletter. Maybe you do some paid advertising, let's just say, whatever it may be. Well, it's kind of an investment portfolio. You know, an investment portfolio, for those out there who have one, it's made up of stocks, mutual funds, bonds, whatever. And then if you have somebody deal with reputable, they're going to tell you what the return on your investment of each one is, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And overall, then you have an overall picture of your investments. Well, advertising is no different. Your overall investment portfolio in advertising made up of all the individual things that you place dollars into.
Right.
The problem is, and this you mentioned one of the dental practices, I can go on about businesses doing this. I had a case where the business was down about 11%. They were getting ready to take down all their advertising, which is always the case. It's always the first thing to go.
Right.
And I asked him why. He said, must not be working, where our business is down. Well, number one, we both know there's a lot of things that can cause a downturn in business, not to make excuses. But what they didn't realize, I had everything they had done with me tracked by call numbers and things. So to make a long story short, what they were getting ready to cancel with me, I had turned back and got them their 12-month investment back in less than 3 months. Well, when they finally realized it, because the office manager of all these practices was really a smart cookie, I showed her the report. She put the brakes on everything. And I asked her, I said, you know, did you not remember we set this up? She goes, no, thanks for reminding us. And I said, I know you're down overall 11%, but where on earth would you have been if you'd have canceled this advertising and made your 12-month investment back in 3 months? And that's a case I talk about a lot, is you've got to know what is working and what's not. If it's working, do more of it. If it's not, do less or stop it altogether. Mm-hmm. And I know these are common sense things. I've been doing this for over 20 years, Bonnie. You'll be amazed at how people don't focus on the fundamentals of trying to get the word out about their business or their services. It's mind-boggling.
I think they get overwhelmed. I think they get, especially with so many choices today. And as you say, as you and I agreed very well, social media is not free in the sense that it might not cost you dollars, but it costs time, and you have to apply yourself, understand the market, understand the language of the market. One thing I want to add to this before I ask you one more thing, I want to get to the title of your book. The language of the market is today, thought leadership is more important than selling in many venues. LinkedIn doesn't want you saying, well, the doors open at 9 o'clock. We're having a special from 9 to 9:15, and you come by at 12. You'll get coffee.
You've got to know your
we'll
audience. You're right.
And you have to think thought leadership is, what do you know about a particular topic, an area, a market, a product, a service, something that you can share for free so that people will trust you, want to have a relationship with you, and then they'll knock on your door and say, hey, do you do that for a living, or did you write a book, or do you offer those services when you talk about them? So that's the fine line between selling and being a thought leader is you talk about something. I deal with this all day long on my business radio shows. The other thing is I want to talk about your book, Got One or Get One, and the point I believe of that title is a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So why don't you explain why it's more important to keep, and we touched on this with our story about the cupcake trucks. It's more important to keep customers happy than find new ones. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, this is an easy one, and thanks so much for bringing it up as we end here today. What I talk about all the time is this. If the analogy that we all understand is a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, then I say, why are we constantly stepping on the backs of the customers we currently have in the hopes of stepping over them to get to a customer we might not ever have? That doesn't make sense to me, and this is why. It's pure numbers. For every dollar that a business invests to keep a current customer, and this is a proven fact, they on average will spend $6 to $7 to get a new one. So what I've always said, to grow a business, let's look at what we already have and make sure we retain as much of that as possible. If you do everything the same every year, and it's the status quo, and you know that every year you lose 20%, and we'll say not because they move away or they don't have a need. Let's just say for whatever reason that you lose that. Well, to ever grow your business, you're constantly making up that 20%. My thought is, if the things I can control, I can lessen that 20 to 10, and everything else stays the same, I've just grown my business by that much every year. And that simple analogy is not one that a lot of people really think about, that we're always in a rush, and you're right about all the avenues out there, and that's the biggest frustration of small business owners. They're overwhelmed. And look, I live it every day. But what I tell people is, rather than always chasing the new business, spend less time and money on new business and spend more time and money on your current business and your current customers. And I do believe you will prosper, because in today's social media crazy world, and Bonnie, you know this because you have a strong following, people are more interested in what others have to say about you and your business than what you will ever have to say about it yourself. And according to Nielsen, 14% is the number of us that care about what you're saying, about what you're selling, while 78% is the number of the people that don't care about what you're saying about what you're selling, but care what everybody else is saying about what you're selling. So why not take care of the bird in your hand and worry a little bit less than those two in the bush? I'm not saying not to go after them, but let's focus on the business we have already. And I think in today's world, the bar's been lowered so much in the status quo that when you just say what you mean and mean what you say, by default, people will think you're exceptional.
Yep. It's so simple, and retention is what you're talking about. Kevin, I want to thank you so much, but before we close, Carol Phillips, don't go anywhere. We're going to pull you up in about a minute. I haven't opened your line yet. One more thing to ask you. Kevin, I mentioned that I believe there's a logical segue from your advice to business owners and business managers to people who are looking for jobs in the job market where they need to advertise themselves and create a brand. Can you just give us 2 or 3 sentences of a segue of what you would recommend to somebody who's been out of work for a while, professional, over the age of 50, office manager, bookkeeper, using LinkedIn, going to networking events, and nothing has clicked yet? Any words of advice on branding?
Absolutely. You
Go
almost described me when I went out on my own a few years ago at 49 to the T. And this is what I would say. Get involved in groups or organizations that are affiliated with the type of work you'd like to do. Don't go in like a lot of people do, what can I get out of it? Go into that with the thought, what can I put into it? Don't go there selling people. Build relationships. It's not what you know, it's who you know. I am a perfect example of that. So look what you can share and help others, and I believe that by doing that, others will want to help you on your job search or possibly a career change. I'm living, breathing proof of that.
Excellent advice. And you'll be there when they're top of mind looking for that kind of person. Good advice. Kevin Neff.
Because you're memorable for the right reasons.
There you go. And the right audience, too, right? The right pool. So,
That's
Kevin, why don't you give a website URL where you would like people to go, and then we're going to do our little welcome. Go ahead. Where do you want people?
And it's www.kevinmakessense, like commonsense.com. So it's kevinmakessense.com, and I'm very accessible. My products are there. And any input from the show as well, I'd love it. I'm also good about answering any questions your listeners might have, and might even have a free gift with them if they contact me.
Well, that's nice. And, Kevin, I have to spell your URL because that's just something I love to do. Carol Phillips will be with you in 10 seconds. Kevin makes, M-A-K-E-S, sense, S-E-N-S-E. Put it together, www.kevinmakessense.com. There, I did it. Okay, I am turning on Carol Phillips' mic. Carol, do not say a word yet. Your mic is live. Don't say a word yet. We have to do the grand entry here. Kevin Neff,
yes, we do.
N-E-F-F. I have to spell that for everybody, N-E-F-F. Kevin Neff, you and I are going to try our best. We really are.
Okay.
To say exactly on the count of 3, welcome, Carol Phillips. You ready, Kevin? Okay.
I'm ready. I'm waiting on you.
1, 2, 3. Welcome,
Carol
Phillips. Oh, my God, that's one of the best we've ever done. Carol, welcome to the Bonnie and Kevin Show. How are you today, Carol Phillips?
Hello. Hi, Bonnie.
I'm the sidekick.
Great. Thank you for having me.
There you go.
Hello.
Delighted to have you, and I know you and Kevin remember each other. Was I really that impressive as a brand at the National Publicity Summit, Carol? Come on. Kevin won't, he's not going to say a word. Do you agree with Kevin?
I have to tell you. Kevin beat me to the punch because I wanted to say to you, you are so memorable, and besides the fact that you're gorgeous on the outside, your gorgeousness on the inside comes through, and you have a perfect balance of self-confidence and kindness that's very apparent.
Oh, I just want to go off and cry for a minute here, but I have to run the show. Carol, that's very kind of you. I don't usually get this kind of commentary from my guests. I'm so pleased that the two of you felt my brand came across that way, and I like to believe that's so. Say what you mean, Kevin. Now, Carol Phillips, I'd like to give you a minute or two to chat with Kevin Neff. Anything you heard, I know you were listening avidly, anything you heard in his segment that resonates with you, don't get into your book yet, but just anything you have a question for Kevin or a comment. Why don't you go ahead, Carol, talk to Kevin.
Oh, absolutely.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing fine, having fun with you and Bonnie on a Monday night.
I know, it's terrific. Well, the two things that I loved were building relationships. It's so important to think about how you can help other people, and then it will come back to you. But building those relationships, not just going in with, what can I get out of this? Because then you come across to people like a salesperson. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is repeating, what you're offering people, so that over time people will remember you. And I just heard something recently that talked about direct mail, and it said, don't mail out one piece of direct mail to 100,000 people. Instead, mail to, 1,000 people repeatedly, and then they'll remember you. You'll be top of mind.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, comment?
No, I just think she nailed it on the head and was very clear with that. I think that a lot of people mistake activity for progress. They shuffle the papers on their desk. Oh, I've been busy, but you have to look at the results you're getting for your efforts, because there's so much to choose from these days that if you don't do that, you're going to pull your hair out. And look, we've all done it. Let's be honest about it.
Yes, and today in the corporate world, the new mantra is, it's not how busy you are, it's the results you produced or helped to produce. So don't tell me you attended 15 phone calls today and you went on 4 sales meetings and you posted 15 blogs. It's what came out of it. How many listeners how many callbacks did you get? How many visits did you make? How many introductions? What is the next step in terms of the results? And it all boils down, Kevin, you know this too, the bottom line is so what? So what? When you can answer so what with a good business justification, then you're a very, very clever and very speaker. I'm very impressed. So thank you very much for being with me. Now, Kevin Neff, I'm going to ask you to hang tight. I'm not going to mute your line.
Absolutely.
All right, and I'm going to introduce Carol Phillips properly. Carol Phillips is a health and wellness expert with 25 years of experience. She's an energetic health coach, author, speaker, and consultant. And most important here are the results. Carol Phillips has helped thousands of people improve their health through seminars and workshops, and I am looking now at the ebook version of her new book, 52 Simple Ways to Health. Carol Phillips, welcome to Read My Lips. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Bonnie.
Delighted to have you, Carol. Thank you to Kevin for waiting 5 months to get on the show, but you were probably at the end of my very long line that day, and I was very happy to book you. So, Carol, let's get down to business here. 52 Simple Ways to Health. Let's diagnose that and pull apart that title. 52. Anything to do with 52 weeks of the year?
Right, absolutely. It was, that's part of it, is that I have what I call in the book my 52 rule, which is now my 52 challenge. And that is that if we're focusing on small, easy, doable changes and pick one a week and get the ball rolling and pick something different each week, over a year we will definitely notice some great improvements in our health.
I like that. Let's talk about, I'm looking at page 10 in your down. I appreciate that. You talk about the 4 categories of how we fall in our health. If you're going to categorize us, people are healthy and well. People are healthy and not well. We're going to talk about that. People are well but not healthy. Wow, I want to know about that one. And not healthy and not well. I think we know the first. I think we know the fourth. So why don't you give us the 2 intermediate permutations? How can you be healthy but not well, Carol? What do you observe?
Okay, so a lot of times people think that health and wellness are the same thing. And basically what health is, are we disease-free or not? So basically, you go to the doctor and you get the blessing off on your health. Wellness is more about your state of mind and how you're taking care of yourself overall. So to give you an example of somebody who's unhealthy but well is if somebody, say, had cancer, but they had a positive mindset and they're doing everything in their power to, stay healthy in other areas.
Mhm. Okay, and now let's talk about the other one. How can you be well but not healthy? That's the one that really interests me.
Well, the opposite of that example would be, say somebody goes to the doctor and, the doctor says, oh, as far as I'm concerned, you're healthy, but, they're not in a good place mentally. They're not eating healthy foods. They're not exercising. Their stress is through the roof. That's somebody who is, quote, unquote, technically healthy. They're unwell. And, down the road they will, likely become unhealthy.
Okay, and then we have the people who are just happy and everything's hunky-dory and their health is in the crapper, right?
Right, exactly.
No pun intended there. Sorry, that was a little crude. Carol, I want to talk about the Plymouth State University's OSIP model. I thought this was interesting because when we talk about health, and thank you for defining health versus wellness, very interesting definition and distinction, there are 7 different, I'll call them modalities, they call them dimensions of health. Let me just pop these off, and then you can pick a couple to talk about because I do want to get into some of the great tips in your book. We have occupational health, spiritual health, everybody talks about that one, social health, interesting, intellectual health, physical health, emotional health, environmental health. I think I got all 7. So what do you think the ones, from your point of view, Carol Phillips, what are the ones that are most important today, or do they all share equal top billing in the overall composition? What do you think?
Well, one of the reasons why I put it in the book was because I wanted to point out to people that every area of your life affects your health. So every area of your life falls under one of the 7 dimensions. And so if people think of health more holistically, they can see that if they make small changes in each area, it's a lot easier for them to stay healthy than if they become hyper-focused on just diet and exercise.
Interesting. Let's talk about occupational health and social health. Those are the 2 I'd like you to talk about. Occupational health, not everybody's lucky enough to be working in the passion of their life, getting paid for what they love to do. So how do you have occupational health if you're in a job you're really not that crazy about and there's a lot of stress, but you need the money, you've been there a while, the perks are good, the pension is good, and you're not going to really put the effort into going anywhere else. So how do you find that occupational health in that situation, or don't you?
Well, in that situation, if you're not going to leave to find another position, then you definitely want to find ways to enjoy the job more. Because otherwise, if you're unhappy every day in your job, that's a lot of time in your life to spend unhappy. And you're going to be more stressed. And then the stress eventually ends up affecting your health. So you have to say to yourself, okay, what can I do to change this situation short of finding another job? Only each person can answer that question, whatever factors are involved in their job. If they stop and think about, what really bothers me the most about this job, really analyze it, then maybe they can come up with some solutions that's going to reduce their stress and leave them overall more happy.
And the answer is not to go to a happy hour sooner after work than you usually do. That's not right. not going to be the one. And let's segue right into social health. How do you define social health?
Well, we are social beings. And, for example, exercise. One of my big messages is that years ago we just automatically took care of ourselves. And there was less stress in life. We went out and played and did what we wanted as far as exercise went. And slowly we've become this society of teaching everybody that health has to become boring and expensive, and you need to go to the gym and get on the treadmill and be by yourself and not enjoy exercise, which is crucially important to health. So the fact that we're social beings, we need to focus on that for good brain health. And, that includes, interactions at work, interactions with our family. If we're going to exercise, do we want to do that with other people? Because that's good for the brain. So, even having a simple conversation is one of the most complex things for the brain to do. And it's healthy. It's good brain exercise.
And it's so easy and it's obvious, and all you have to do is talk to people. Carol, that's great information. I want to ask you, I'm looking at the one sheet you gave me when I met you at the summit in October, and this one intrigues me. Are you avoiding the gym like the plague? She asked. That will make you fall in love with exercise. Go ahead. Tell me, what tricks are going to make me fall in love with exercise? This I want to hear, Carol. Go ahead. There's your first challenge.
Well, first of all, people need to realize the body was designed to move. The body was not designed to be sedentary. Second, we're social beings. So, think of things that you think are fun to do that you can do with other people. And if you don't like going to the gym, then don't go to the gym. There are, a million other things you can choose to do. Or maybe what you're doing at the gym, you're just so bored with. You need to do something different at the gym. They have, fitness classes or, partner up and do something fun with people. Some gyms have basketball courts. So think outside the box and get back to exercise being fun. And if you say that that's going to be your number one priority, is that you're going to choose exercises that are fun, your brain's going to want to do it all the more.
I like that. Now, let's talk about this one. You say fed up with all the stress in your life? Well, I thrive on stress. I suspect that Kevin probably does too, but it might not be always so good for us and in the quantities and qualities that we embrace right now. So you say you have 5 easy steps to bring down the blood pressure and make us smile. I want to hear these. What are your 5 easy steps to lower stress? Carol?
Okay, first you have to realize that stress will slowly erode your health. When you're talking about the stress 3 of us have as far as, what we love to do for our work, what we're passionate about, staying busy, that's kind of a healthy stress. There's, 2 types of stress, healthy and unhealthy. So the book's referring more to the unhealthy stress. So we want to realize first that it's eroding away our health. And then we want to start analyzing ourselves and, really get to know ourselves, what we like, what we don't like, what works for us, what doesn't, who's in our life that stresses us out, and, how we can take control over it. Third, you definitely want to have exercise in your life, especially cardio, because the body was designed to release those feel-good hormones when we exercise and reduce the stress. The next one is, if we're eating healthy most of the time, our body's going to be less stressed, because when we're not eating healthy, we're not giving our body what it physically needs to survive and stay healthy. And then the last thing is we need to celebrate every little step we make in the right direction. We need to celebrate and give ourselves positive feedback mentally, because if we don't, we're not going to be motivated to continue to make the good choices. So that combined, and then there's a lot of other things that can help us reduce stress. Quitting smoking is absolutely huge, because the body, mentally and physically, we're more stressed if we smoke.
Interesting, very interesting. Let me ask you another question. You say diet has nothing to do with being hungry. This I want to hear. Eat more.
Oh, absolutely. We live in a society where people think that they have to totally go without their favorite foods or be hungry to lose weight. And, we weren't designed to be hungry. We're designed to, eat and nourish our bodies. And what people can do is, if they start slowly making healthier food choices and crowd out the more unhealthy food, then they can actually eat more and lose weight, because the healthier foods are going to give you more energy to exercise, so you can offset the calories with exercise. So if you slowly go in a healthier direction, and believe it or not, once you do that, also the foods taste better.
And who doesn't want foods that taste better? I'm looking at the chapters of your book, Carol. I'm looking at 12 through, let's say 12 through 20. These seem really easy. I'm just going to read the titles, and then why don't you pick a couple you want to talk about. One is Decide to Be Happy. We hear this all the time. So it sounds like from your book, you can make the choice to be happy. That's number one I'll put out there. Make time to laugh. I agree with that 100,000%. Sit up straight. Quickly, tell me about that. Is that alignment of posture and making everything, the breathing easier and the digestion easier? Is that why you say to sit up straight, Carol?
Right. It affects everything. Our spine is, it's the foundation of our body and all of our core muscles. And if we're not, sitting up straight and having good posture, we're kind of suffocating our lungs. Then we don't get enough oxygen with each breath. Every cell in our body needs oxygen. So when we're not choosing healthy behaviors, there's a lot of indirect links that will, bring us more and more away from health. So each healthy behavior that we do brings us closer to health.
That sounds like an easy one. How about breathe deeply? How deeply are you talking about? I don't want to scare anybody if I start breathing deeply on the radio. I have some radio guests on my business shows who are heavy breathers, and it sounds like there's a storm on the other end of the line. So how deeply are we supposed to breathe? I'm going to ask Kevin about this in a second. How deeply should we be breathing, Carol?
Well, if we're not sitting up straight, I should say, then we're going to breathe more shallowly, and then our body's not getting the oxygen it needs. And also, when we're not exercising, our body was designed, to move and exercise, and when we exercise, we're really getting a lot of oxygen to every cell in our body, which is the way our body is meant to stay healthy. And then, all of the chemical reactions that happen and, tell our bodies to be healthier. Well, if we're not exercising and we're just, slouched over our computer all day, then, it's a lose-lose situation with the lack of exercise and then the lack of oxygen that we're getting to each cell.
Okay. Why don't you pick a couple more to focus on? And well, first of all, Kevin Neff, do you sit up straight? Are you breathing deeply?
Not as much as I should, I can tell you.
Maybe you'll get.
And when we breathe, we breathe deeply. We get the oxygen to the brain, and then we become, we're more alert, and then we're more productive.
I will say I'm pretty proactive on those things now. When I'm very conscious, I probably sit more than I ever have, especially with a lot of the creative writing and work, and but also in dealing with the stress of every day and clients and problems that I will say that my overall health and wellness has been better because of just doing what Carol talked about, deep breathing. I think with breathing it helps set your pace a little bit better. It brings my baseline down a little bit, helps me kind of gather myself.
Good point. It grounds you in many ways. I want to read a quote from an author unknown. By the way, Carol's book is filled with quotes, very interesting quotes at the tops of each chapter, some famous and some by the almost famous or already famous Carol Phillips. I appreciate that. And you say, here's one, I love this one, Carol, on page 18. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. I think that's what your whole book is about, Carol. Isn't that the guideline to the whole book, the whole purpose of writing it? Do something today your future self will thank you for? What do you think?
Right, absolutely. It's all about, ignoring all the rhetoric of society, telling everybody how they need to take care of themselves, and just stopping and taking a step back and looking in the mirror and saying, you know what? I need to take care of myself, but it doesn't have to be impossible because we're naturally designed to take care of ourselves. Our bodies know what to do. Our brains tell us all day long what we should be doing. We've just gotten to the point where, we tell ourselves that it's too difficult or I'll start doing it tomorrow. And, of course, tomorrow never comes. So, we want to take care of ourselves so that, we can, live to be a healthy old age where we're still independent.
Mm-hmm. And I have a quote from Dr. Phil, that's Dr. Phil McGraw, also in your book on page 54, and I think this goes hand in hand with what you just said, Carol. The quote is, someday is not a day of the week. If you say, I'm going to lose weight someday, I'm going to stop smoking someday, I added that one. I'm going to exercise someday, I added that one. You'll be making that same empty statement a decade from now. Winners have a timeline. How important is that, Carol, to have a timeline?
Right, because we each need to have a plan, and that's something that we've gotten too far away from in our society. Is we need to have a plan and implement it each day. So it something small in each area of health. Just focusing one day on, am I getting enough sleep? What small changes can I make? Because that's hugely important. Getting enough sleep and being in a deep sleep.
Mhm. Stop worrying about when I have a bad night and I don't. The book, or I have to put the TV on. I just lie there and try to relax my mind. And I say, when I fall asleep, it's because my body and my mind are really ready. But as long as I'm here in the dark, something is going to be getting some rest. Do you agree with that, Carol?
Oh, absolutely. And with technology, we tend to be inputting into our brain all day long, and the brain was not designed to work that way. The brain was designed to have some downtime, and that's one of the reasons why people don't sleep well, is because they're inputting all day long, and then they try to go to sleep, and the brain has not had time to process.
Yep. I've been using Words with Friends as the last thing when I'm alone at night. I use Word with Friends as the last thing to just take that last bit of energy out of my brain. I have games going with about 8 people and about 12 active games, and I just look forward to that at the end of the day. But I recently read, Carol, that that's not a good thing because it's activating and sparking, energizing your brain just before you're supposed to go, to me, it just takes that last bit of energy out and lets me say, I did something smart. Now I can go to sleep. You have an opinion on that, Carol?
Right, and if you're looking forward to it and your brain finds that relaxing, then to me that's a good thing.
Thank you very much. And guess what? I have another good thing. We're going to give out your website, Carol Phillips. I have here healthdesignnh.com. Is that correct?
That's correct. Or the easier domain to remember, which brings them to the same website, is 52waystohealth.com.
Oh, I like that. So that's 52, the numerals 52, WAYSTO2 health, HEALTH.com, correct?
Right. And if they go to my website, they can download a free chapter of my book, which is the Reduce Chronic Stress chapter.
I was just looking at that, and I wish we had more time. You want to give us just one sentence, because we're almost out of time. What's your solution for reducing chronic stress, Carol?
Taking time for yourself each day. It's hugely important. So put it right on your calendar. Put yourself first on your calendar instead of everybody else.
I love it. Thank you very much. Carol Phillips, so happy to speak with you, and Kevin Neff. I have saved 1 minute exactly for each of you before we go into our outro, and I didn't tell you what's happening in the outro, but I'll tell you in a second. Carol, what's next for you? Ladies first. I hope you don't mind, Kevin. Carol, where are you going to be?
No, not at all.
Signings? Thank you. Book signings, workshops, a new book coming out. Carol, tell me, now you have 45 seconds. What's next for you?
Oh, well, I do have another book. I love working with companies. I love helping corporate wellness programs. So my next book's going to be focused on helping companies improve their wellness programs to further reduce costs and increase productivity.
Nice. I like that a lot. Thank you very much. Kevin Neff, I saved a minute for you. What's next for you, Kevin?
Well, a lot of new clients. I just got back from speeding in LA too, but speaking at a large marketing event in Los Angeles. But I'm excited to announce, I guess, to your listeners before anybody, Carol doesn't even know this, I've created what I think will be the best resource on the web for do-it-yourself marketers. It's a new membership site, and it's Kevin's Skull Sessions, kevinskullsessions.com. It's probably the biggest thing and most exciting thing I've done in a long time, because for 20 years I'm going to take what's in my head, I'm going to show people what I do, how I do it, but most importantly I'm going to show them why they need to do it, and I'm pretty excited about it.
And that's Kevin's, Kevins, Skull, Skull, Sessions, S. I'm looking at it. Whoa, you've got a skeleton skull here. Whoa, okay. I have created the resource for frustrated do-it-yourself marketers. Kevin Neff, award-winning branding expert, marketer, and best-selling author. Very nice, Kevin. We got that in very quickly. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm going to give you both instructions. You're going to take a deep breath right about now from the bottom of your diaphragm. Well, not quite yet. I'm going to put the outro music on in 16 seconds, now 12 seconds, and you're going to join me in the big mwah shout-out to the world and see if you can mwah longer than I mwah. And in your mind, you can think of the person you're sending the shout-out to, and this is for healthy, and this is for confidence building, and it's for just being a happier person. So here we go. And the music is on quietly now. Carol Phillips, Kevin Neff, see if you can out-mwah me. Here we go. Deep breath. Here we go. Oh, we got some good ones. Wow. whoever that was really gave me a run for my money. I'm Bonnie D. Graham, a.k.a. Radio Red. Whoa. Thank you, Kevin Neff, for sharing your wisdom. Pleasure to speak with you. Carol Phillips, the same. Thank you both for being so patient, waiting 5 months to get on the show. I hope you had a good time. I certainly did. I'll be back here next Monday. My goodness, is it really March 30th? Q1 is almost over. If you got some quotas, go do something about them. And time for taxes. What can I tell you? We'll see you next week right here on Read My Lips Radio. Mom, I love you, and I'll talk to you later. Okay, everyone, here's the final shout-out. I think I'm early. Here we go. I'm getting ready. Waiting for you. Laura, take some hearts from what Kevin's comments were. I think they're concise. Here we go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.